Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a fast-paced card game, or at least now it is. Back in the day, setting 2 cards and passing in the first turn was the norm. Now, this game is highly explosive, and games can be determined by the coin flip. If you were like me, someone who came back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Through MasterDuel, or looking to get into this game for the very first time, this is the video for you. And if you're a veteran of the game or a modern player, stick around. I'll have plenty of tips and ways to help your friends get into the game as well. Real quick, just a disclaimer, this is not a video for people who have never heard of the game Yu-Gi-Oh! Before. This is for people who know what a normal summon is, or have ideas about what all the different phases of the game, how to properly summon a monster. You get what I mean. For those who don't know, my name is Doc Conrad Yugioh, and I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh! Content creator. I've been making videos on my favorite alternative formats to this game, and I've been a MasterDuel player for a very long time. However, today I decided to discuss the new player experience because I have previously shared the plight these new players are dealing with now. This game has too much going on. There are way too many cards. Every game ends on turn 2. I've been there before. When Raron made that video about the MasterDuel experience, I saw myself almost 2 years ago. So, here is my biggest tip for playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Go second. That's right. If you as a new player have no idea what to do when it comes to playing the game, your best bet is to go second. Allow me to explain why. When you're a new player, allowing your opponent to play gives you time to understand what your opponent is trying to do. If you are going up against an experienced player, you can take the time to read the cards your opponent is playing, try to understand why they're playing it the way they are, and find times when they look to be interruptible. Doing this turns your opponent's end boards into a puzzle you can solve. Incredibly important to note, there are good decks and bad decks to play for the sake of learning. Some of the strongest going second decks do not care about interacting with your opponent at all, and while they might give you a win, you won't have to learn about what your opponent is doing at all. Hint hint, Numeron. That's not what I'm here to teach. The deck that I recommend for best learning Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the deck that I played when I first got back into the game. Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon is a deck that, in the past, was all about summoning powerful monsters with large stats. Over the years, this archetype has been molded from making just 8,000 attack monsters into a multi-tooled combo deck that has the ability to play through endboards. Allow me to explain my reasoning as to why this is the best deck for learning how to play modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And for everybody curious out there, I'm choosing Cyber Dragons over Cyber Dark Dragons. Cyber Dark Dragons have a interesting, mechanics, but I feel like there's a whole lot that is too bogged down for a new player to truly experience what it's like to play new modern Yu-Gi-Oh! 1. It forces you to watch your opponent play. My first point is really the most important one. By watching your opponent and paying attention to what they're doing, you can start to understand the idea of what archetypes do, how they play, and what they try to achieve. If you try and play the game by only going first, you have a lot more room to flounder on your own combo lines, play unoptimally, and be unaware of what you should be doing. If you go second, you're trying to ensure you're ending the game. It is a clear and concise goal for a new player to understand. 2. It has a main combo line. A lot of decks new players typically gravitate towards are floodgate-based strategies, decks that lock your opponent out of playing the game, or decks with simple plans. That is not how modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played at all, at least in the traditional sense, and you're just kidding yourself into believing it. Having a combo line forces you to see the possibilities with each card in your opening hand and think, what does this card do for me, and how can I get it to where I want it to go? 3. Flexible game plan. Despite this main combo line, Cyber Dragon offers flexibility in its removal options. We'll get to more of that in a bit, but just know there are plenty of ways to remove your opponent's endboards without going into battle and hitting over it. You can still do that, and might have to do so, but it's not the only way. 4. Extra deck variety. Cyber Dragon, at least my version, has 3 different extra deck types: Fusion, Xyz, and Link monsters. These let players have a grasp on what certain cards can be summoned and when they can't. 5. It deals with unique summoning mechanics. Some of these cards also utilize different summoning mechanics within those extra deck types as well as in the main deck, giving a new perspective into what it really means to summon those monsters. There's an intended way to summon them, and the archetype's unique way to do it. 6. Interactions in the damage step. One of the biggest confusion factors for players is something known as the damage step, or a time in which effects can be activated that change attack and defense values during the battle phase, and other effects cannot. By utilizing this, newer players can experience some of the interesting depth this game has to offer and express a skill that more advanced players can use. 7. It's an archetype and has extenders that are outside of said archetype. Light machines. A vital learning tool for modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is learning the use of archetypes, cards that all have a theme, typically in the name, that allows for synergy between them. While its lines all deal with a singular archetype in Cyber Dragon cards, all listed within these card effects, they also utilize effects involving their attribute, type, and level. These combos are based around light machine monsters. 8. Searchers with restrictions. With modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Comes the use of searchers, cards that add to hand other cards to help get your plays started or extend further into what you would like to do. By running an archetype searcher in the card Cyber Emergency and a slightly more generic card with restrictions in Cyber Repair Plant, this deck has consistency while also providing a jumping off point with how certain cards can add other cards to hand. 9. It has archetype locks. A typical restriction that modern, more balanced decks have is locks. By activating or utilizing specific powerful effects, sometimes you could be locked out of using other effects or summoning certain monsters. Due to an extra secondary effect, a lock to use only machine monsters gives new players something to be careful of when making combos. It pays to pay attention. And 10. It has room for hand traps. No typical modern day deck has any success without adding some cards that either disrupt your opponent on their turn or turn the tide in your favor without your opponent knowing what's coming. By having a few extra slots for hand traps, or cards that interrupt your opponent during their turn from your hand, you can stop your opponent from extending out into a board that fully locks you out of the game. So, I hear you ask, how do you actually play this deck? Well, that's what I'm about to show you. Now, keep in mind, this is the solo mode, so this is going to be not an exact way of going through the real plays in which you would play against another person. However, I feel like this is the best way for me to show it examples as to what the types of mechanics and the usual combo lines we want to do for this deck. We're going to go second because that's what our deck is designed to do and how we built the deck in the first place. There's a particular reason why I chose this solo mode, and you'll see that in just a second, and we have opened the full combo here. What a great one. What a great turn. Let's go ahead and describe what would happen if there's only one simple monster in the way. Now, keep in mind, the reason why I chose the Gyrgiant or Gyrgiano synchronization archetype is because these cards that my opponent is playing are machines, meaning that I have a variety of different options I can go into if I so choose with this specific archetype. So, we have opened up a copy of Cyber Dragon Naxter, Cyber Dragon Core, Galaxy Soldier, Cyber Emergency, Cyber Repair Plant, and Cyber Rev System. Now this is a hand that has fully gas, as we would call it, cards within the archetype and no hand traps involved. Normally, most hands that you would try to go ahead and hope for on your, especially going second, is cards that happen to have hand traps or interruption for your opponent. This one does not, but we can still work it, no problem. We're going to go ahead and start off most of our combos with a normal summon of Cyber Dragon Core. If we didn't happen to have this, we would activate Cyber Emergency in order to get this copy of Cyber Dragon Core, and after which we could probably go for some further extension plays. But let's go ahead and pretend that we didn't have that. We're going to go ahead and normal summon out this copy of Cyber Dragon Core, and add from our deck to our hand a Cyber Spell Trap. Now we have a variety of options we could choose from. We could choose Cyber Emergency, Cyber Repair Plant, Cyber Rev System, Cyber Load Fusion, and Cybernetic Overflow. Normally we can have 3 copies of each of these and not have these in hand, so for the sake of this demonstration, I will add a copy of Cyber Repair Plant. Now that we have this normal summoned monster out in the field, we have a couple of options we can go to in the extra deck. It'll light up in the bottom left corner when it says we can. We have an option of Salamangreat Almirage, which is normally what we're able to go through, because it is a normal summoned monster with 1,000 or less attack due to its restriction up here. Or, because it's a machine, we can also use Chimeratech Fortress Dragon. Now, I don't think that this is going to be the best case scenario to use this in, but you can do it because it can be used from by sending the above cards from either field to the graveyard. And because this is a machine monster over here, that's why we added this. But we'll go ahead and start off with Almirage. The typical play is using Cyber Dragon Core, normal summoning it, bringing out Almirage, and with Core, you would add a copy of Cyber Repair Plant. Activating Cyber Repair Plant now, you would take this card, and you would add a light machine monster from your deck to your hand. Now, from this point, you have the option to add any light machine monster in your deck. The two main cards you want to go for is either Cyber Dragon Hertz or Galaxy Soldier. If you've drawn one, you want the other. If you haven't drawn either of them, you want a way to get to them, or one or the other. The best case scenario is you already have a copy of Soldier, you would add Hertz. If you already have Hertz, you add a copy of Soldier. And if you have both in hand, you would add a further extender with Naxter, or a play that you could go off your opponent's monster with Jizukiru. We'll get to this card in just a moment. First off, we're going to add a copy of Hertz because we already have our copy of Galaxy Soldier. Now we're going to activate a copy of Galaxy Soldier. This card is a level 5 light machine. Note that it does not have the word Cyber Dragon in it, but it's still a very important card for our combos. We're going to activate Galaxy Soldier, sending a copy of Hertz, and we're going to special summon it out. Now here is an important part. In the Yu-Gi-Oh! MasterDuel settings, you have the ability to change when your, let's see here, I believe it is activation order settings right here. Select the order of activation when multiple cards can be activated simultaneously. Both of these cards have the option to activate right now. On default, it's off, meaning that you would have a prompt that says, would you like to activate Galaxy Soldier? You would say yes. And then would you like to activate a copy of Cyber Dragon Hertz? You would say yes. Now what you actually want to do is be able to decide which one you want to have because you have more agency. By doing this, you're doing what is known as a chain block. Let's say, for instance, your opponent has an ability to interrupt your plays at this moment right here. They have a copy of Ash Blossom. If they wanted to, you can interrupt it by activating Galaxy Soldier first, if you really want that card, and then blocking it with the option of Cyber Dragon Hertz by adding another Cyber Dragon from deck or graveyard to hand. Meaning that they can't stop us from activating with an interruptible via the chain this copy of Galaxy Soldier. They can interrupt however, grabbing the copy of Cyber Dragon. It's an important thing to get into later, but it's not too important at the moment. We're going to just add this copy of regular Cyber Dragon from deck to hand, and Galaxy Soldier will add a copy of Galaxy Soldier. Now we can activate our copy of Galaxy Soldier once again, pitching the Cyber Dragon we just got. We send that off, we do not activate Almirage, and we bring out the Galaxy Soldier. Now, we have a couple things we could do here. We have some further extenders to go into further plays. We could also not. So let's start off with our usual play. We're going to go ahead and XC summon with 2 level 5 machine monsters in Galaxy Soldier, both of these being 2 level 5 machines, into a copy of Cyber Dragon Nova. Cyber Dragon Nova has multiple effects. Its first one says once per turn you get to attach 1 material from this card, then target 1 Cyber Dragon, in quotes, in your graveyard, special summon that target. Now, all of these monsters are treated as the card Cyber Dragon in the graveyard and on the field, meaning that we can use it for this. We'll special summon out by detaching a copy of Galaxy Soldier and bringing out our big old Cyber Dragon. By the way, I'm right-clicking when Almirage to deny that I do not want to use it, just in case you don't know about that. So, from this point, we have a couple of options. We can go ahead and link these pieces of removal off, or, if we really want to, we can get what is known as a negate on field, with Cyber Dragon Infinity already on there. So, let's go ahead and XYZ over this copy of Cyber Dragon Nova with Cyber Dragon Infinity. How does it happen? Well, let me explain. You don't need 3 level 6 light machine monsters. Instead, the first line of text states, once per turn, you can also XC summon Cyber Dragon Infinity by using Cyber Dragon Nova you control as material, transfer its materials to this card. So by selecting our Cyber Dragon Nova on field, we're able to bring out Cyber Dragon Infinity. Now, Cyber Dragon Infinity has the current effect where it can target a face-up attack position monster in the field and attach it to this card as material. We don't want to do that, but it's a good important thing to note that we could if our opponent had any monster in attack position. So, with the Cyber Dragon and the Almirage, we could go off into a link play of going into Predaplant Verte Anaconda. This effect lets me fusion summon via the monster effect on field, but it would lock me from being able to special summon monsters for the rest of this turn. This is a very powerful card, and is banned in fact in the trading card game, but in MasterDuel we have it at 1. I like to think that we should go for something a little bit more interesting to show you all what we can do with our opponent having a machine monster on field. We're going to go ahead and take Chimeratech Fortress Dragon, and we're going to use Quick Draw Synchron, our opponent's monster, as material. Now this is also an important thing to note. You can keep going and use other machine type monsters. Or you can click Decide and say, no, I want to stop there. This is important to note that you want to decide at this point, meaning that you have sent Quick Draw Synchron and Cyber Dragon to summon out Chimeratech Fortress Dragon, and at that point, your opponent had no way of interrupting the removal of this machine monster, because it was summoned via game mechanics. That's right, this deck can be incredibly complicated. So, now that we have got 2 monsters out on field, including the Chimeratech Fortress Dragon, we don't happen to have lethal. You could check if you happen to have enough damage on field by clicking the I button in the corner, and seeing that at the bottom right here, over here, we have 4,500 attack that we could use to go ahead and kill our opponent, and our opponent's life points is currently still at 8,000. So, let's see what we can do to help alleviate that. We're going to go for the Link Summon by using 2 effect monsters, Salmograte Almirage, and the monster we just brought out, Chimeratech Fortress Dragon. Now you might be thinking, well, you had 4,500, why would you bring out a 500 attack monster? You'll see. We're going to activate Verte Anaconda's second effect. Its first effect does nothing. It targets a face-up monster in the field and becomes dark. By using its effect to pay 2,000 life points and send 1 fusion or polymerization normal or quick spell, this effect becomes that spell's effect when that card is activated. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn. By sending Overload Fusion, we're able to not click that. That's a negate. That's a negate for anything we do and our opponent does. We're able to fusion summon out via the deck by sending a copy of Overload Fusion, which fusion summons a Dark Machine, Chimeratech Rampage Dragon. We can use up to 2 plus Cyber Dragon monsters. So we're going to use a copy of Hertz and regular Cyber Dragon. And here's also another point. Select monsters to use fusion material. You don't have to continue to use monsters from this point. You can hit cancel, and it'll be just fine. By using that, we bring out our copy of Chimeratech Rampage Dragon. So, now that we've brought this monster out, we're still at around 5,100, and we're locked at a special summoning. What's the point of that? Well, let me explain. By activating Chimeratech Rampage Dragon's effect, and not negating it, we can send 2 light machine monsters from my deck to the graveyard, and gain an additional attack each battle phase for doing so. Now, you have to do this within the main phase, because it's not a quick effect, but you can Chimeratech Rampage Dragon right here. Now, if we go to battle phase, we can hit for 500, 2,500, 2,100, a 2,100, and 2,100 for game. Now that was the first round against that sort of opponent, showing some unique mechanics, different ways you get to the combo line, etc., etc. But I feel like there's a whole lot more we can get into, so let me show you what we can do. For this game, I've decided to open up on a open-ended board state without having any direct way into our main combo line, and seeing what we can do from here. So, we happen to have access to 2 Cyber Dragons, 2 Cyber Dragon Naxters, and our opponent happens to have 2 cards face down that we have no idea what they are, and Cyber Rev System, as well as a copy of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. We'll start things off with, this one's a bit tricky. I think we're going to go ahead and start with the normal summon of Cyber Dragon Naxter. By doing this, we're able to go into either Link Haribo or Salmograte Almirage for further effects. We're going to go ahead and go for, let's say, yeah, I think Link Haribo is probably the best one. It has slightly more attack, and it lets us tribute over level 1 monsters in the future as well. So now we can go for the special summon of Cyber Rev system for Naxter, or we could go for a 2-play if we'd like to go into Verte. I think that that could be fine, but let's see if we can extend it just a little bit further. We're going to activate Cyber Rev system, and I think we're going to go ahead and bring out our copy of Cyber Dragon. Now, while this may not be a machine-type monster, we could make it one. Ooh, that could be fun. No, I think our main goal is we want to go ahead and get as much damage as possible out on the board. Let's go ahead and link summon via Cyber Dragon and Link Haribo. We'll bring out a copy of Verte Anaconda. And now we'll activate Naxter. By Naxter, we're going to get discard our copy of Sidra. We're going to bring out this Naxter. Now we're going to activate Naxter, targeting a 2100 attack machine monster from our graveyard. We'll go ahead and bring back one of the base Cyber Dragons. And if we want, we can go into Link Haribo if we really want to, but I don't think we want to right now. And let me explain the reason why. Because of the link arrows in which they point to, we could go for our copy of Cyber Dragon Seeger. By bringing out Seeger, while pointing to Verte, we have a OTK line already. If our opponent has no way of stopping us, this is another way we can do it. We're going to pay 2,000. We're going to send Overload Fusion. We're going to Fusion Summon Chimera Rampage by using one Naxter and one regular Cyber Dragon and no other cards. We're going to bring out that Chimera Rampage Dragon, and oh boy, we're able to also utilize its first effect. When this card is Fusion Summoned, you can target spell traps on the field up to the number of materials used for this Fusion Summon, destroy them. We're going to activate Chimera Rampage Dragon's effect and destroy both of my opponent's face-down cards. They're going to activate a copy of Soul Servant, this being the Dark Magician way of playing the game. They're going to go ahead and send out put on top of the deck a copy of Palladium Oracle Mahad, but no effect as of yet. We're going to activate Chimera Rampage Dragon, sending 2 machines. We're going to send a copy of Hertz and a copy of Core to the grave. And we can also activate Hertz's effect to now grab the core we just added. In case our opponent had any way of playing through this or stopping us while setting up an attack, we can add the core we just sent back to our hand, thanks to it being sent off of Chimera Rampage Dragon. But we don't have to worry about that right now, because we already have lethal on board. Seeger, target Rampage, 42. While this may not be the most interactive way of going through this sort of gameplay loop, I do think it's important to show that just because we don't have the main combo line, it doesn't mean we can't find it in all these different ways that this deck really plays around. There's a whole lot of flexibility this deck still has, even when you aren't able to normal summon core and get your plays going from there. For this example, in order to get the AI to do what we want, we're going to go first and simply pass the turn. This will make our opponent have a sort of way of wanting to get through their board and set up to what they actually want to fully do. Okay. Wow. They're finally doing some decent amount of stuff here. They're going to go Flawless, Tenyi Spirit Vashetta, Monk of the Tenyi. Link this off into another copy of Monk. And link these 2 off into a copy of Shaman of the Tenyi. Now this is more like what I thought they would try to do. They're going to bring back a copy of Shathana, link that off into the 3rd Monk, and then link those 2 off into the copy of Berserker of the Tenyi. So they have a form of protection via the effect in the graveyard of Shathana, and some other effects that are kept safe via Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi. See, let me explain. Flawless Perfection says, all non-effect monsters on the field are unaffected by monster effects. Once per turn, if your opponent special summons an effect monster while you control a face-down monster or non-effect monster, you could draw 2 cards. As well, as Tenyi Spirit Shathana states, If you control no effect monsters, you special summon this card from your hand. If a face-up non-effect monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your hand or graveyard and target one of those destroyed monsters, special summon it. Then you can destroy one monster your opponent controls. Now, what I am going to do is a play that I do not think a lot of people would immediately recognize as the best play, but I do think it's very important for this specific case. See, this card is unaffected by monster effects and has destruction protection. So, if we add our copy of Core via Cyber Emergency, normal summon Core effect, you know, doing the usual, we'll just add a copy of Repaired Plant. Just pretend we don't have that in hand already. We'll add Repair Plant, as is our usual combo. Now it's time for the fun fusion. Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon states that it requires one Cyber Dragon monster, plus one monster in the extra monster zone. Cannot be used as fusion material. Must first be special summoned from your extra deck by sending the above cards from either field to the graveyard. The original attack of this card becomes 1200 times the number of materials used for its special summon. So, by using Berserker of the Tenyi, which is in the extra monster zone, and our Cyber Dragon Core, we are able to get around a multitude of things. We're able to get around destruction protection, as well as unaffected by monster effect protection, because this is not a monster effect, it's a summoning condition. This deck rules, man. Cyber Repair Plan effect, we're going to add a light machine, we're going to add ourselves, I don't know, a copy of, we could go Galaxy Soldier here, we could go Hertz, I think Soldier's pretty good. We just have so many different options that this deck can specifically do. This deck is so cool, man, and I hope that all these sort of demonstrations really show what it is about this deck that really can help out new players maybe like you, or different mechanics and different ways that you can interact with your opponent's board via summoning conditions, via effects and chain blocks, going second, destroying boards. There's a whole lot you can do. Is this the best deck that you could possibly do to win this game? No. But it's the deck that I think really shows the essence of what Yu-Gi-Oh! Really is. A learning experience, and figuring out and a sense of discovery of all the different types of cards that are in this game, and how they interact with each other. There's just so much you can do, there's so much you can explore within this game, and I hope you all enjoy. If you're interested in learning more about Yu-Gi-Oh! And wanting to go ahead and stick around, go ahead and subscribe. I make content involved in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Content creation sphere, specifically for an alternative format that's more slower and I'd say cheaper and more introductory to newer players into MasterDuel. It's very cheap. It's called NR format. Self-plug here. But that's neither here nor there. If you're interested in playing, Yu-Gi-Oh!, give Cyber Dragon a try. It has all these different ways you can interact with your opponent and help you learn the game in so many different ways. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.